Welcome to author's reading of Moderate Fundamentalists, Ahmadiyya Muslim Jam'at in the Lens of Cognitive Science of Religion, published by DeGruyter Press in 2017. Chapter 2, Tribal Gods, My God is Better Than Yours. The mood among the courthouse clerical staff was jovial as they left work at the end of a long day. A group of friends engaged in a friendly banter. Somehow the conversation turned to athletic prowess. One of the men, who happened to be a Sikh, boasted that no one could run faster than he. His 28-year-old Muslim co-worker took this to be a communal challenge to all Muslims and countered that he would be happy to race the Sikh man to the next bridge. A mutual friend of the two volunteered to be the judge of the impromptu track competition. The judge ran ahead of the others to the other side of the bridge so that he could determine the winner. Once there, he signaled for the competitors to start. The young Muslim challenger ran as fast as he could to save the honor of Islam. As he reached the end point ahead of the Sikh, the judge declared him to be the victor. Other Muslims gathered around him to congratulate him. They recalled another famous 19th century martyr saint, Sayyid Ismail, who upon hearing that a Sikh man is a great swimmer, took up swimming and after months of painstaking practice, challenged the Sikh swimmer and beat him at his own game. That passion to save the honor of Islam led Sayyid Ismail to lead an army of Muslims against the British and die fighting the colonial authorities and their allies. The race took place outside the district courthouse in Indian city of Sialkot in 1868. The young Muslim runner was Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, the future founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jam'at, who had left his home village just months ago to take up his first and only job in the large multicultural urban center of Sialkot. Had he lived for another 79 years, Ahmad may have been happy to know that Sialkot, along with the rest of the western Punjabi cities, was ethnically cleansed of all of its offending Hindu and Sikh inhabitants and had become part of the new Islamic country of Pakistan. One of Ahmad's ardent followers, Sir Muhammad Zafrullah Khan, became Pakistan's first foreign minister. Former Hindu and Sikh Sialkotis moved eastward to Indian Punjab, some of them settling in Ahmad's home village of Qadian, which was left on the Indian side of the border. In one of the largest ethnic cleansings in the world history, more than 12 million people were forced to abandon their houses, farms, friends, and in some cases, blood relatives. What caused millions of people who had lived with their neighbors for generations to feel threatened and abandon everything they had owned and everyone they had known? Why is it so easy for us to become scared of them? Why did a young man take an innocuous little boast about athletic prowess to be a challenge to his religious faith? How are actions of partisan individuals such as Ahmad both defined by the intensely sectarian atmosphere in which they grow up and contribute to maintaining and intensifying it? How and why do defenders of faith such as Ahmad end up wanting to change the very religion they purport to defend? How do they end up being reviled by the very community they claim to be saving? Section 2.1, Wired for Tribal Thinking. According to social identity theory, one of the most well-developed social science models of social behavior, having a positive self-esteem is one of the most deep-seated human desires. Similar to the way we need food and water to maintain our physical health, we need to feel that we are good people to maintain our mental health. One of the most amazing findings of the social psychological research is that our identity, that is, our sense of who we are, is not defined by our individual characteristics, such as unique shape of our face, but also by groups that we belong to. Not surprisingly, then, our self-esteem, that is, what we think we are worth, is also based on our evaluation of the status of the groups we belong to. We feel happy when our group ranks well compared to other groups and sad when it does not seem to measure up. Just think of how you felt the last time your favorite sports team won a game. Perhaps you felt the feeling of nirvana similar to the following fans of the championship winning teams. Quote, "I'm so proud to call myself a Packers fan. It's just not possible to put it into words. I thought that the last Super Bowl win was special, but it is not at all comparable to this. Way to go, Green Bay Packers. That includes players, coaches, management, especially fans. We are the best, and I'm proud to be part of it, unquote. Comments on the Green Bay Packers team forum. As the following news report shows, American football fans are not the only ones susceptible to such euphoric experiences following their team's victory. Quote, Iniesta took up into heaven after an agonizing game and said the Sports Daily Marca. We suffered, but it was worth it. The country's Prime Minister, Mr. Zapatero, said he was happy and emotional. Fans were left pinching themselves after watching their team triumph. Said Adolfo 25. It's an extraordinary feeling of happiness and nerves. We are going to celebrate like crazy all night, all Monday until Tuesday morning, said 41-year-old Miguel Angel. Unquote. Even if you are one of the unfortunate few who have not experienced the unmitigated joy and pleasure of basking in the glory of your team's championship win, sorry Winnipeg Jets, Texas Rangers, and Houston Astros fans, you probably know a die-hard sports fan who seems to be enjoying winning more than players themselves. Sports psychologists have found that fans are more likely to wear their team's jersey after a win and claim credit for the win by using terms such as "we won." Psychologist Edward Hurd of Indiana University found that ardent sports fans are more confident of winning dates with attractive members of the opposite sex following a win than after a loss. He showed pictures of attractive members of the opposite sex to sports fans whose teams had won and lost, and found that fans of winning teams were significantly more confident of being able to obtain a date with persons shown in the pictures. Furthermore, he found that fans were also more confident of their ability to perform well in unrelated activities such as darts and word games following a win by their team. Bragging about the greatness of one's favorite team is a standard part of sports fan behavior repertoire. Other unseemly components of this repertoire include verbal arguments and physical violence between spectators at sporting events, and these days also on social media. As the following excerpt from a blog report about a Philadelphia-New York football game shows, the quality of arguments between sports fans leaves a lot to be desired. Quote, with Sunday's 27-17 win over the Giants, the Eagles are easily and hands down the best team in NFC and possibly all of football. Not the Jets, not the Patriots, not the Falcons, not the Steelers, not the Saints. The Philadelphia Eagles are the best team and the most dynamic as well. The game wasn't pretty by any account, but the Eagles have now shown that they can win by any fashion and how dangerous they are. Unquote. If you know any die-hard sports fans, you know that they're convinced that their team is the best, even if it's losing a game. New York Times reporter Warren St. John followed Alabama Crimson Tide fans as they followed their favorite college football team in their RVs from one tailgating party to another. However, instead of learning about the reasons for the blind devotion that fans have for their teams, he ends up confronting his own inner demons. Even though St. John was born and raised in Alabama, he had moved to New York when he was a teenager to study at Columbia. He is horrified to discover that he shares with diehard Alabama fans the belief that Alabama is better than other football teams. What's worse, he cannot explain why he holds that belief. Quote, try as I might, it is impossible for me to admit that I like Alabama, just because, and not due to any objective reality that establishes it any more worth of my affection than Tennessee or Auburn. As I write this, part of my psyche is battling for control of my fingertips and screaming out, oh yes, we are better. But why? My rational mind asks, because we cheat less? Doubtful. Because we have better colors? Absolutely. But if tomorrow we change to mauve, I would reluctantly go along. Because we are better than they are? Well, some years yes, some years no. The historical tally is still being counted. Unquote. I can relate to that. Whenever I have struggled with my faith in Ahmadiyya Islam, I have never considered any other Islamic traditions such as Sunni or Shia Islam, nor faiths of Zen Buddhism or Jehovah's Witnesses, despite the fact that they insisted on dropping by our house in Saskatoon, clutching a fresh issue of Watchtower magazine every month. Every time I have asked myself why not, I feel a gut reaction because Ahmadiyya Islam is better than any other kind of religion, and that somehow the Ahmadiyya belief system is more logical and more reasonable than others. I couldn't quite explain why, but I just knew that Ahmadiyyat made more sense than all other religious belief systems. If I had to believe in an organized religion, I would have to be an Ahmadi. Of course, similar to St. John, I didn't have any rational arguments to support my firm beliefs, yet there it was, somehow lodged deeply inside the core of my being. Social psychologists have a name for such beliefs that are so deeply held that no evidence is considered necessary. They call them myths. Sport fans, both the closeted ones and the outed ones, and religious zealots are not the only ones who believe in group superiority myths. Many cultural groups hold similar beliefs. Anthropologists studying ethnic groups find that ethnocentric beliefs in superiority of groups' culture combined with the condemnation of the outgroup as immoral and inferior are commonplace. Chosenness is a particularly prominent expression of this belief. Political scientist Stephen Van Evera argues that such chauvinistic myths are hallmarks of nationalism, practiced by nearly all nationalists to some degree. He provides a number of illustrative examples, including the Nazi myth of Aryan supremacy, British and American belief in rational and intellectual exceptionalism, and Russian belief in the extraordinary inventiveness. See Table 1 for these and number of other group superiority myths from around the world. He could easily have added many more to his list, such as the Pakistani belief that one Pakistani Muslim soldier can dominate 10 Indian Hindu soldiers. American belief that they are more spiritual than the more material white man. American Indian belief that they're more spiritual than the more material white man. Israeli belief that they're more rational than the crazy Arabs. A Muslim belief that God chose to favor them as his final chosen people after Christians and Jews strayed from the prescribed path, and the Nation of Islam belief that an evil black scientist created the wicked white man. Group superiority myths are reflected in the literature and art of group and feature prominently in its creation stories that form the master narrative of a group. Section 2.2, Muslim hierarchy enhancing myths. Although it's easy to see Christianity and Islam as vast and static forces, they are perpetually in flux. Over time, each religion has shaped the other. Griswold, 2010, page 12. Islam and Christianity are similar in many ways. Both claim over 1 billion adherents around the world. Both originated in the Middle East and both claim to be heirs to the Hebrew prophetic tradition, starting with Abraham. Both ascribe miracles to their founders, Jesus and Muhammad. Both Jesus and Muhammad were persecuted by those in authority. However, only Muhammad headed a state and led an army into battle. According to the Muslim tradition, the first major battle took place in 624 at Badr. Under Muhammad's leadership, just over 300 ill-equipped, naked and hungry Muslims faced close to 1,000 battle-ready Meccan kuffar, armed to the teeth with latest weapons and armory. The Holy Prophet, may peace be upon him, turned his face towards the Qibla, then he stretched his hands and began his supplication to his Lord. Allah, bring about what thou hast promised to me. Allah, if this small band of Muslims is destroyed, thou wilt not be worshipped on this earth. He continued his supplication to his Lord, stretching his hand facing the Qibla until his mantle slipped down from his shoulders. So Abu Bakr came to him, picked up his mantle, and put it on his shoulders. Then he embraced him from behind and said, Prophet of Allah, this prayer of yours to your Lord will suffice you. He will fulfill you for what he has promised you. So Allah, the glorious and exalted, revealed, when ye appealed to your Lord for help, he responded to your call. It will help you with 1,000 angels coming in succession. So Allah helped him with angels. Sahih Muslim, book number 19, hadith number 4360. The Prophet grabbed some desert gravel and sand and threw it at the kuffar, which caused a sandstorm, blinding the kuffar. According to the Muslim tradition, this incident is referred to in Quran chapter 8, verse 15 to 18. O ye who believe, when ye meet the unbelievers in a hostile array, never turn your backs to them. If any do, turn his back to them on such a day, unless it be in a stratagem of war or to retreat to a troop of his own. He draws on himself the wrath of Allah, and his abode is hell, an evil refuge indeed. It is not ye who slew them, it was Allah. When thou threwest a handful of dust, it was not thy act, but Allah's, in order that he might test the believers by a gracious trial from himself. For Allah is he who heareth and knoweth all things. That, and also because Allah is he who makes feeble the plans and stratagem of the unbelievers. The infidels were routed. 70 of them, including their leader Abu Jahl, died on the battle. Another 70 were taken hostages. The Prophet looked at the people of the well in which the bodies of the pagans killed in the battle of the Badr had been thrown, and said, "Have you found true what your Lord promised you?" Somebody said to him, "You are addressing dead people." He replied, "You do not hear better than they, but they cannot reply." Sahih Bukhari, Volume 2, Book 23, Hadith number 452. The dominant Muslim narrative of Badr is that with divine help, Muslims were able to beat the odds and win over an enemy with vastly more material resources than them. According to the Muslim tradition, this pattern repeated itself over and over again as Muslims quickly conquered Arabia and moved beyond its borders. Unlike the Meccan pagans, they were now up against Christians who also claimed to have God's final message, giving them the divine right to rule the earth. In what they saw as vindication of their claims, Muslims quickly rolled over their opponents, taking one city after another in the Middle East and beyond. Bosra in 634, Damascus in 635, Jerusalem in 637, Khuzestan in 639, Alexandria in 641, Cairo in 642, Azerbaijan in 643, Fars, Kerman, Makran, and Khorasan in 644, Cyprus in 647, Kabul in 670, Samarkand in 677, southern Spain in 711, and Sindh in 712. The lightning-fast advance firmly established the myth of Islamic exceptionalism. Most Muslims saw God's hand working behind the scenes to ensure their victories. The narrative that if you follow Allah's path of Islam, you will always be victorious became deeply embedded as a key component of Muslim identity. To vindicate his own claims to divine support for Christians, Pope Urban declared the First Crusade as a counter-offensive against Muslims in 1095. For the next 300 years, the two civilizations militarily fought against each other in a broad front extending from Spain to the west, in the west to Syria in the east. Christians were able to expel Muslims from Spain and Sicily, while Muslim occupation of former Christian lands in the Middle East, North Africa, Turkey, and the Balkans proved to be more durable. While Crusaders didn't succeed in their declared mission of retaking the Middle East, they did stop the lightning-fast expansion of the Muslim world at the expense of mainly Christian West. The fatal blow against the Muslim expansion did not come from Christians. Instead, it came from the Mongols, led by Genghis Khan. The Mongol invasion of the 13th century were so ferocious that they broke through the Islamic narrative of invincibility. This was the first time that Muslims were forced to ask the question of what went wrong. What reduced this cognitive dissonance for many Muslims was not a revision of the belief in God's promise of final victory of Islam over all other religions. Instead, as the 13th century cleric Ibn Taymiyyah explained, the reason Allah had taken victory away from Muslims was that they had stopped following Islam faithfully enough. The only way to restore the glory of the golden era of Islam was to go back to faithfully following Islamic tenets, in particular jihad, argued Ibn Taymiyyah and other Muslim leaders. While the Mongol rulers themselves eventually converted to Islam and the Ottomans had some success in reuniting Muslims under one empire and making further inroads into Eastern Europe, Islamic countries never regained the degree of cultural and material dominance over Europe that they had enjoyed in the 11th and 12th centuries. The myriad reasons for this include the rise of science, reason, and free thinking in Europe and their relative decline in Islamic countries.